All right, everybody, welcome to Coffee for Closers. Alex Wellings, Rick Kallmeyer here. Today, we're talking all about our top 5 sales books. Continue our conversation from last week about our favorite sales systems. This one's interesting. It's our top 5 books, generally the same between Rick and I, with one exception. We hope you find it interesting, and of course, all the books mentioned are listed below in the description of the video. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment, or even just subscribe to the channel. All of that helps. We hope you enjoy. Take care. Welcome to Coffee for Closers, everybody. Alex Wellings here with Rick Kallmeyer in the studio. Another week in the saddle, as it were. Talking about sales. Yep. So we had an interesting conversation last time we were on about our 3 favorite selling processes, but it really came off of us wanting to do our top 5 favorite sales books. Yeah. Right? Or it really bled into it. And so this is going to piggyback on that last episode a little bit, but we had much a debate. We were still having debate even before we come on this show 5 seconds before, where basically there's a ton of sales books out there. People in our industry, everybody's got different sales opinions, and everybody has different maybe
qualifications and what allows you to write a book about selling.
Yeah, and they're coming from different industries too when they're writing these books. But again, what were the most relatable to our industry as an advisor or retirement planning advisor? What do you think the top 5 books are? So we'll start. What do you want to start from 5 and work to 1?
Yeah, I think that's the way they typically do hot lists, right?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so let's jump in. We got 5 books. Yeah. Number 5 is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah. So maybe we had different for us because I agree on that.
Yeah. I think the reason why is because it's a little less sales processy, a little less sales specific, and more just about generally in business. Yeah. How to conduct yourself in a way that makes you obviously a friendly person, but also puts you in a position to drive conversations one way or another, right?
I think it's the old adage of it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I think that book really builds on how you say something, the way you go about a situation, the way you present yourself, the way you walk through, not a sales process, but the sale, right?
Yeah.
Who you are in an environment where you're selling yourself to people rather than a bona fide, this is how you sell something once you're in there, right? A lot of those books assume you're already a decent person socially. Yeah. And I think that Carnegie book is a little bit more focused on okay, these are what traits a salesperson.
Foundational aspects of a salesperson. Yeah. And it sets up 3, 4, 5 decades of sales books. Yep. Longer than that, actually. But decades worth of sales books all built on these foundational qualities. And so in a way, it's number 1 from its aspects of we were just talking. This is the debate we were having is all sales books are essentially the same, except for, in my opinion, 1. But they're all the same. And there's these foundational qualities that Carnegie talks about in that book that become the linchpin to every other major sales guy out there builds on that, right? So, building rapport and, dressing to impress and, you got a few minutes to make your first impression and you got to stand out amongst a crowd and all these core concepts of what we know sales are. Yep. And again, some guys or other gals that write books on sales will gravitate towards one of these things. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think, and I may be wrong on this, but at least my reading, I think Carnegie was one of the first people to bring psychology into the thought process of being a salesperson. I know Zig.
Yeah, I guess
Zig did a lot more of
that's the whole aspect of influencing people, right?
Right. It was Zig was always more one-liners. This is again still when you're in a sales pitch process presentation, right? Here's the things you say, and there may be a reason behind what it is, but Dale was kind of walking into it saying, this is the thought process of who you need to be. This is kind of the paradigm you should be walking into for a process. So at least what I picked on, again, I haven't read a lot of the mid-50s and 40 sales book that were before that, but I think he was the first, at least that I've been able to notice, that brought their psychology to what we're doing and why we're doing it. And here's why.
Yeah. Problem with it is just it's so the foundational aspects, anything outside the foundational aspects of that book is so outdated nowadays that it's become this
tough,
kind of relic of a past. And that honestly is kind of like how Zig's books are becoming as well. It's just a tiny bit,
it's a different generation.
Yeah, different generation.
Decades separated. And for a book to remain that long in the first place,
stand the test of time.
Yeah. You have words that were worthwhile for 40 years. That's pretty impressive,
Yeah. I guess that's the truth with our number one, too, is eventually. Maybe not. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to bite my tongue halfway through there. Like, I don't know, man. I'm very excited about number one. It's the best book out there by far. All right, number 4. Go ahead.
Yep. It was Never Split the Difference.
Oh, Never Split the Difference. Yeah. This is written by an FBI negotiator.
Yep. Yeah, Never Split the Difference. He was the FBI negotiator. His whole concept was like, you can't, like, again, right? I'm selling it for 40,000. You want 35. Let's just split the difference. Call it even. We both benefit. His concept is like, as soon as you start to break on stuff, or as soon as you start to like show your hand on things, you've already kind of lost the battle in itself. So sticking true to it, knowing a value in your product, knowing a process well enough to hold the value up through that, right? Like never having to like back down on, well, we can do this amount, right, instead of this, because like I like that style of it. I thought it was pretty.
It's interesting, but we've debated about this one a lot. I disagree so vehemently with this that it's like there's such a core element of, it's like I'd say never split the difference first.
Yeah.
Don't try and be the first person to split the difference on something. But like a concession is the start of a healthy relationship, especially in the retirement selling place. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to ask my clients to do that, right? So why? I mean, this again. I think there's core elements that you would never split the difference on, right? It's like, well, I'm never going to sacrifice your guaranteed, your ensuring your income for your life, the income that you need, right? So if you're going to ask me as your advisor to sacrifice that, I'm not gonna be that guy, right? And so showing strength in that portion of it maybe. It's like, I'm never going to be too risky with your assets, right? So I'm never going to split the difference there. And even if my client is like, oh, yeah, well, we're really looking for somebody to be more risky. Well, it's like, well, that's a core element of my practice that you're asking me to sacrifice in order to accommodate you as a client. No, but here's why. And so now I'm going to argue my point as to why you need me.
Yep.
Right? And so that's a good core element. But if you're saying I shouldn't sacrifice anything else in order to get this person on front, it's like, okay, well,
no, I think that whole core element is the point of it, right? Because his concept is like, look, I was an FBI negotiator. I could never be in the situation to say, hey, look, you have 10 hostages, and as long like you can kill 3 as long as you let 7 go, right? That's a negotiation, right?
Yeah,
like,
but again, too, it's like, but I am going to, get you food, and I'm going to, do all these other things to make you feel accommodated, and I am going to do like all kinds of like that's a core element of negotiation, right? And so you are actually splitting the difference on all these like little intermediaries to make a deal happen.
It's just not the original deal, right?
Yeah, because this is who I am as at the core.
Yeah.
But any negotiation comes down to is like, this is what I'm going to do for you. Now, what do I need to do what do we need to give you in order for me to do this?
Yeah,
right.
And I think that's a fantastic point.
Or this is what I want from you.
Right.
Now, what do I need to concede in order to get that from you?
And I think that's a fantastic point to say, hey, look, you're sitting with a client, they got $1 million in portfolio. You want $300,000, you want $400,000. They don't want to move that much. It's fine. It's whatever. Like, that's what you need to make the portfolio work, right? Like, how do you stick to that? Well, it's like, okay, then, I'll be here for calls at any point in time, right? Like, I'll email you updates on the portfolio, right? But it's like, you're not going to negotiate or sacrifice on your main objective, which is to get everybody out. But looking at a negotiation in a larger detail to know you have different needles to move or different levers to move, right?
Yeah, I feel like you end up with a lot of guys and gals that are like, well, I'm going to read this book.
Yeah.
And it tells me never to give up, any room in the negotiation, never split the difference, always
Never
argue
doing
my
that,
point. It's like, okay, well, what if the client's like, well, we really want, like last advisor wouldn't contribute or wouldn't give us reporting monthly, and we really need to be able to see we feel more comfortable when you report monthly. No, I'm not going to do that. I do quarterly reports, nothing else.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's no sense in you not being accommodating there. Why? But this book would have it believe that it's like they need to succumb completely to your system and fall in line. Yeah. Not necessarily, right? Like you can be somewhat accommodating as long as it doesn't change your core goals as a business, right?
Yep.
And so anyway, But I do get the idea of like, don't discount yourself unnecessarily, stuff like that.
What's your 4?
I mean, that's a good 4.
Yeah.
I might switch that to 5 though.
5, yeah.
I mean, I'd say it is one of the better books. My 4 would probably be Gittimer's Little Red Book.
Yeah. It's a classic.
But you don't like Gittimer.
I don't like Gittimer.
Gittimer is such a classic sales guy. And so if I'm going like foundational guys, like, so my 5 to 4 transition, it makes very good sense to me. It's like, here's Carnegie at 5. Yeah. At 4 is Gittimer.
I don't like Gittimer because it's just a pet peeve to things. I don't like once I've bought in your product for you to keep trying to sell me more stuff. That's
Dude, he's a salesman.
You're reading Gittimer's book and it's like,
he's like, don't forget to buy these audio tapes all the way through.
I bought your book, man. Like, just give me some meat in this book. Like, I'm 2 paragraphs
Don't forget
in.
to read this monthly newsletter. Yeah.
Go online, sign up for the Gittimer Red Book of everything, right? You're like, dude, let me get through this book. If it's good, I will definitely buy more stuff. Malcolm Gladwell bought all of his stuff, really liked it. It's like, so he it's like if you go to a car dealership and you buy a car and the next day you get an email to come back and buy another car. It's like, I just bought one, dude. I don't need another one. So that's where me and Gittimer get off on different bus stops. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
3rd.
I go submarine. I can't train a kid to ride a bike at a seminar for 3.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I generally agree with that. I'd go with that for 3.
Yep.
I'd go with that. Because really all I'm grabbing from Sandler is one thing.
Yeah.
Upfront contract. And we talked about it in the last show. Yeah. So I won't bore too many people with that. But the upfront contract is one of the most powerful things in sales, which is why I would say might be number 2. Yeah. But if it's going to be number 3, I'm okay with that because spin selling, I think, would be my number 2. Yeah. And because spin selling has so much more to bring to the table as far as I really feel confident that spin selling or asking questions and letting people bring themselves to this conclusion is the most strategic way. Our entire sales process is pretty much the one that our internal sales process for some of our marketing systems over here is built on guided enlightenment, right, is what we call it. Bringing people down a path themselves, you pick it, this direction or this direction, which way should we go? This direction or this direction, which way should we go? And what would you say if we said this? Oh, and then based on that, and then you've got so much ammunition. So it's such a great overall thing that it brings more to the table than, say, Sandler does, but without the upfront contract. Where you end up could be a complete surprise. And they left that out of spin selling.
I agree with that.
And that's a huge issue.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't just bring people down to guided enlightenment and they're like, where are we going?
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on? And then you're like, well, then naturally I should be your financial advisor.
Yeah.
And they're like,
wait,
no,
what?
man, my brother's our financial advisor. I have no interest in doing any of that. Is there anything else you can help me with?
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, well,
it's more like my brother-in-law is my financial advisor and thanks for showing me all of this.
Yeah.
Right? Without getting that upfront contract set in place, you can end up there.
But you could have been like, well, look, if your brother is this, that leads you right into some questioning right then and there. Like, well, then why are you still here?
Yeah.
Why are you sitting at my workshop? Why did you come in for an appointment today? Right. And like, well, we had some extra questions. Well, does he not handle this sort of thing? Okay. Well, and then that opens up your whole platform of questions and leads you to a path where it's like, well, if your brother-in-law is this, like, this is what my goal is, right? And if your brother-in-law is this, then why are you here?
Yep.
Right? Because I might be able to show you something different. If that were the case, and it were better than potentially and solve this specific need, do you see the value in potentially working with me? Because if so, that's where we're headed, right?
Yep.
And we can see if it's actually a fit. I don't know if it is a fit or not, but let's get there together and see if it works. Yep. Like there's Sandler interacting with spin selling and putting you in a positive spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go with that. 3 and 2, because Sandler's last, how I don't believe in not being able to go back, right? Because I just don't think that you could possibly completely seal off one section of rapport building.
Sales process.
Yeah, because when you pitch, it's like, you could do a lot of fact finding, but you could potentially have a surface level pain and not realize that there's some other pain that just didn't surface. And so now I don't have the ability to go back and find the pain. Let's say they say that this is their pain.
Yeah.
Maybe we're getting too far into depth because we know this.
Yeah.
But anyway, with Sandler, Let's talk about some of the downsides, why I'm putting Sandler 3 instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sandler would have it in my fact finding that I get to the core pain. But if somebody tells me this is their pain,
mm-hmm.
and then I continue to dig around and try and find other pains, they're going to be somewhat annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in the past where guys do this, and they keep digging after they've told them, like, this is what I have an issue. I have an issue with this. Yeah. And then they're like, well, what about this? And I was like, no, it's really just an issue with this. And okay, I get that. And well, just for instance, like, what about all this stuff over here? Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, no, I get it, yes, but this is my main issue. If you can help me with that, that's where I'm looking. And then they don't address this thing enough, and they're pissing them off.
Yep.
Right? And so Sandler would say, oh, well, you can't go back, so you better get it all. Mm-hmm. But really, you've just made them upset, and you've
lost a ton
of rapport versus solving for that pain and potentially guiding them to a place where they're like, well, this is really surface level. This might feel like this is your pain, but I have a feeling that it might be something like this, and here's why. Mm-hmm. Explain it to them and be like, do you think that might be the case? Yeah. Well, tell me about that situation. Now I'm back at the front, and I'm bringing it back into my pitch, but you have to have gone through your pitch to have guided them to a place where they're willing to hear that. Give them what they want, not what they need at first. Give them what they want and then what they need.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so Sandler would not always allow for that, right?
Yeah. Even in that situation, right? It's like once you've upset them, you are going to have to circle back at some point to one of those two things, right? You either have to circle back to bonding and rapport to save some face and build some grace back up with the client, which means you're circling back. And if you don't dig that deep, later down the line, you got to circle back to the pain objective anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think a sales process dealing with human beings is a cut and dry section.
I just don't think. But maybe that Sandler doesn't really mean it that way. But then if that's the truth and he doesn't mean it that way, then it's a pointless analogy.
Yeah. Definitely a weird thing to write an entire book about then.
Yeah. But that's what you're going to get with Sandler loyalists. You're going to be like, well, that's not exactly what he means. It's like, well, he built that whole submarine based on this I can't go back thing, because in the metaphor, that vault is sealed with water.
Yeah.
So if I go back in there, I'm going to potentially drown the whole sail.
Yep.
Right?
Sink the whole boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still a good book. Has its pieces. I put it at 3. I think it's better than 5 and 4. I'm putting it at 3, but I still put spin selling on top of it.
Yeah.
I think spin selling goes a lot farther into the meat of the sale, how to do the sale, why to do the sale. I think it's a little bit more applicable in today's time of things. Like you said, I think it agrees a lot more with the way we do things.
Spin selling is powerful. Yeah. Probably one of the must reads.
Yeah.
But number 1.
Yeah.
The Way of the Wolf.
Yeah.
And I've said it before. It's like it's not maybe as powerful as in its in-depth example or an real-world example style like spin selling is, where it's like, hey, we're going to show you exactly, these are the questions, these are the types of things. But as an overall process video or process book, I've never seen anything explained so incredibly beautifully simply.
Yep.
And it's so good for sales folks that are having trouble seeing the forest through the trees kind of thing, And it's like, this is all you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And it bases around the 3 10s, you, your company, and your product. These are the 3 things that matter to your prospect. You need to have a wicked good opening, have a good little fact-finding mission, have a pitch that's based on selling the prospect on those 3 things. You, the company, and the product.
Yep.
Based on the information you gathered in their fact-finding and the rapport you've built already, you should have an idea of what this person needs to be sold on. Is it really important for them to be bought in on you, the person selling it to them, their product, or the company, or some sort of mix, more likely some sort of mix of the 3?
Yep.
And based on your findings in that, you are going to result in either a sale, because you've pushed them down the path, you've assessed the situation right, you've got them confident enough to make and create an action out of them, a buying action. And if not, it's a reassessment of where you feel like they have not been sold completely on.
Yep.
And it's so powerful, but it's just like, anybody in their gut. I just feel like any salesperson that understands sales on a rudimentary level can understand, it's like, do I feel like I'm vibing with the guy myself personally? Do I feel like they need to learn more about our company? Do I feel like the product isn't there yet? What can I do to get this guy over the hump?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you pretty clearly, like, hey, I'm the kind of guy that just needs to feel the product. I feel like I like you, man. It sounds good, whatever. It's like, okay, if that's true, then that's what this needs, right? Or I need to get them involved in the company. I need to bring them down, or I need them to see my office more, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so easy to identify. And then it allows for these things called looping patterns where you can just keep going back and repitching the person to get their action threshold up, or get their satisfaction on the 310s up to their action threshold, and then offers an anecdote, if that's not possible, to bringing down their action threshold. It's so beautifully done. And,
So it moves the same kind of way Sandler does, in a sense of moving along a straight line through the sales process, right? He gives you a little bit, I think, clearer objectives of what we're moving through, right? As you're walking through the sales process, what you're trying to accomplish in the pitch, right? Instead of just throwing random features, benefits,
it's not just crazy, like hypothetical theory. It's legitimately, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Get them satisfied on these three things. And then he adds the Pluto and Neptune.
Yep. Which is where I was going on that straight line kind of concept, right? Keep it moving forward. There's no point in getting way off a track, talking about something that's completely irrelevant to what we're focusing on, or what's going to close the deal.
That's like when you're adding like so many different value adds, and you're talking about like their kids in college, so much so beyond rapport. It doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, there's a fine line to moving the sale forward and stalling it in a place of comfort. And, you've got to keep moving things forward. And again, it changed, maybe not the way I was selling, but it finally put words to the way that I felt like I communicated with prospects, and subconsciously what I was doing to accomplish their needs.
Yep.
And it's transcended time for me over the last decade, or maybe a little less than a decade, because you showed it to me. Originally, I don't even remember that, but you showed it to me, and I was like, yes, this is it. And I thought it was funny because the Wolf of Wall Street had already been out, and I was like, whatever, this guy's just cashing checks, And then you read it, and you're like, this guy's brilliant.
He actually knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. He's making money on this now, legitimately, versus, obviously the discretions of the past. But I could not recommend it enough. It is such a great book.
Yeah.
And it will open your eyes. If you listen to it with an open ear, and you're thinking critically about how it applies to your business today, you will find this sales process to be one of the best you've ever written.
Yep.
Written.
I agree.
Read.
Written. Written.
Yeah. You could try to write it.
Yeah. That's a great book.
Anyway, so number one, The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. So again, in order. I'm going to do my order, then you can do yours.
Yeah.
Number one, The Way of the Wolf. Number two, Spin Selling. 3, Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar by Sandler. 4, Gittimer's Little Red Book of Sales. And number 5, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
I'm saying same, except 4, we're swapping Gittimer for, I think Chris Foss is his name.
Yeah,
Never split the difference.
Yeah. Yep. Good ideas. Yeah. Anyway, that's our top 5 sales books here on Coffee for Closers. Rick, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure,
of course. And thank you all for taking some time out watching. If you don't mind, leave a comment, a post, subscribe if you're not subscribed. And we'll see you next time on Coffee for Closers. See ya. Oh, hi there. Welcome to Coffee for Closers.